What's going on, everybody? All right, the National is over. It's been almost a week since I came home. I came home 6 days ago. I've had a little bit of time to process, and I wanted to kind of go through some of my final thoughts, my takeaways. I wanted to show you my pickups again. I wanted to tell you the stories about my pickups because it's actually fairly, I think it's I think it's fairly interesting how it all unfolded. And there are some similarities to how I acquired each of them. In and it was interesting. So I'll tell you the details, I'll tell you the story about how it all played out. I also want to show you some of the other things that I walked away from the National with. I had a few different people give me some really cool items. Really cool items. I wanted to show those. Now, whenever I usually do shout outs, when people send me things, I always say, well, this is from this person because of this, and they send it. But I was able to thank everyone in person, and that was so amazing, is that I could thank the person when they handed me the gift. So I will show the card. I will talk about it. I'm not going to go, this is from this person. This is from this person. You guys know what you gave me. I know what you gave me. I appreciate it. Several of my YouTube friends brought me things. Dan, Vintage Baseball PC, brought me some stuff you're about to see. Mike Junkwax Hero got me a really cool item. Got a couple of cards from Jake of Wax Pack Wisdom. It was just great to meet so many of you. J.E., dude, super thoughtful gift. Super thoughtful gift. Was great running into you a few times. All of you that came up and said hello, even if it was just a quick picture, a quick hello, meant a lot. So I want to start by kind of showing the things that I received from you guys. Some really, really cool stuff. And then I want to tell the stories of how things played out and kind of some pros and cons and takeaways from the show and the whole experience. So I don't know how long this is going to be. You know me. I can go long, but I don't know. This might go long. I don't know. We'll see. But if you're interested in hearing the full story of how some things went, that's what I'm planning on doing here. So let's turn the camera around, take a look at the cards first. Then I'm going to hop on the computer to have some visuals as I'm talking to you. I just think that would be more visually appealing if you're watching this instead of listening. So first, though, let's look at the gifts that you all brought me. All right, this first one, J.E., my goodness. This is an out of 5 Matt Manning flagship rookie. Out of 5, look at that. I have his Superfractor. I did not have any of his out of 5s. I have some gold out of 25s. I'm trying to do his complete run. Now, this one, this Ray Wave, I can't remember if I had this one. But the thing about it is what I'm going to do with my duplicates. So if people do give me extras, I'm going to give them to Matt because Matt just had his first son about a month ago, Sebastian. And I want Sebastian to have cards of his dad. This gilded gold Manning, I did not have this card. This thing out of 25 is incredible. Now, while I was at the National, Matt got traded to the Phillies. So he is now in the Phillies organization, and Matt is quite happy about that. He thinks it's going to be a better fit. And I also got this awesome Hall or Nothing, which will be interesting to see how that plays out. So, but this is a really cool Roger Clemens card. Absolutely, it's gorgeous die cut. Really, really neat. So super. I did not have that card either. Super appreciative of those gifts. And then got a few Nettles cards from you all. My buddy Carl from Australia brought me some stuff, including an Australian dollar, which I'll show you here in a second. There's another Manning card. Again, I'm planning on putting together any duplicates, becoming a duplicate run that will go to Matt. Couple of Clemens cards. Can't go wrong there. You guys know me and what I collect. Look at this kind of sparkly thing. I don't think I had this one. I don't think I did. But if I did, it will end up likely in Matt's son's collection. And then a few of these upper deck, like Legends cards. This beautiful Chrissy Mathewson picture. There's Satchel Paige. There's a bunch of these of some of the all-time greats. And these were really cool to see some of these old images of some of these great players. Got a home run leaders, a couple of third basemen there, and then an 83 Fleer Nettles. That is fantastic. And then this card, I don't think I had this one. I'm going to go through, and it'll be fun going through that collection. Then my buddy Dan's Vintage Baseball PC, he knows that I collect Roger Peckinpah. So this is a TCMA, I think. And then I don't think I had any Burger King cards. I think this is my first one, and I love Ron Guidry. He was a Yankee captain, as you know. And then my guy Jake, whenever he opens any packs and he sees Yankees, he doesn't want them as a Red Sox fan. So he sets us aside for me, so I appreciate those. And then Mike Junkwax Hero. I can't tell you how much I appreciate this. I have been thinking about buying a ticket stub from the Clemens 20 strikeout game with the Red Sox for years. I've had one in my cart for years. I've almost bought one for years. And Mike got me one. Brought it to me at the National. That was incredible. And then the really sweet guy said, I have something for you. He pulls this out. Hands it, says, do you have one of these? And I'm like, I don't think I have one in a 9.5. And if I do, again, that would be pretty cool to include in my care pack for Matt at some point. My guy David Musari got me some stuff. There's an O-Pee-Chee Nettles here. I don't think I had this card, and if I did, it certainly isn't in a PSA 9, so that's going to be a nice upgrade in the collection if I have it at all. And then Carl, again, got me an Australian dollar, which I thought was a super cool, thoughtful gift. Carl brought me and my dad to the airport early before the sun came up on Saturday morning. Such a sweet guy. Got to meet him in Strongsville. We correspond all the time. It was great to see him again. And then again, one last look. Here is my red portrait Cobb in a PSA 2 holder. I just love the registration. I love the deep red color. And the fact that it's an old mill black blows my mind. I just can't believe that this is a card that is now in my collection that I was able to pick up at the National. So absolutely thrilled with this card. Couldn't be happier. And it's the most valuable card in my collection now. By double. It's twice as much as my next valuable card. So, again, it was a special week, and I will always remember the National 2025 as the year I picked this up. That card will be in my collection for a long, long time, as will my other big pickup. My only other pickup, the Cy Young T206 portrait in a PSA 1.5. Again, the registration and the color are phenomenal. It's so hard on this card to find it with that deep green color. A lot of them get pixelated and just aren't as good as this one, and I'm thrilled to have it. Just these two guys at this card show, just beyond my wildest dreams, truly. These were my number one and number two targets. So let me share some of the details of how I picked these up. All right. So, I mean, it really was fun meeting people, seeing people, hanging out with my friends. If I showed up at the National and none of that took place, it would be a completely different experience for the worse. Like everybody who came up to me said hello, um, took pictures, just kind of showed pickups. That was absolutely a highlight. And to those of you that brought me, gifts, that was beyond generous. And the cool thing is when somebody brings me a gift or a card or something at a show, I get to thank them in person. When somebody mails me something, I like to acknowledge it and thank them, and so I do it via video. And but when somebody hands me something, I'm like, "How cool is this? I get to thank you for it and look at it with you right in front of you." So that was really cool. So thanks again for all those gifts, uh, whether it be from friends, fellow YouTube guys, people in Midlife Nation. I do very much appreciate that. And that was truly a blast. Now, before we kind of get into my review a little bit, and I'll probably touch on this more, one of the bummers that went down was the Thursday night YouTube get together because that's sort of it's a really good opportunity for us to get to hang out and for us to get to talk. And when I arrived, there were a few of you I got to meet right off the bat before kind of everything started to shake out, where it looked like, well, didn't look like we were getting removed from the hotel. So it was very cool that I had the opportunity to talk to a few of you, and so that was great. And I was planning on doing that all night. I mean, it's tough on the show floor to have conversation. It's loud there. There's a lot going on. And so, it's definitely easiest to do it at the YouTube event. And it's great. The people who have been working, I mean, Mike Moynihan and everybody who's been working on making that happen for years, that's fantastic. And clearly things are changing from the Nationals' perspective. And I do understand where they're coming from. Basically, if you haven't heard, if you aren't kind of in the loop on what went down, the National was starting to have issues from their perspective where there were pop-up card shows at various locations in the town that the National was being hosted. And so then the dealers were like, wait a second, I'm paying all this money to set up at the National, but down the street there are hotels that are using ballrooms, or there are event centers that are doing little pop-up card shows, and all these people are here, so they're packed, but they're not paying what I'm paying. And the main event is supposed to be this show. So what the Nationals started doing was they started shutting all those things down. And they started saying, you're not allowed, the surrounding hotels are not allowed to host these events. And so anytime there's sort of a get together or a meetup, the hotels were instructed to shut them down. Now, I don't really understand how they have control to be able to do that. But apparently there must be some sort of, I don't really know how that works. So when we showed up and it's like there's an event happening, they're sitting there going, uh-oh, we're going to get in trouble because we're not allowed to host events anymore because the National considers that competition, and the agreement is that there won't be competition for this event. So they shut it down. I don't really blame them. I don't really blame the hotel for shutting it down, because that's what they were told they were supposed to do. They weren't supposed to be competition for the events happening by the National. Again, I don't know how that works. I don't know if there's some sort of co-op or agreement or contract or what. I don't know with the event center, but that was the deal. And in the past, that was never really an issue. And so to think that suddenly it would be an issue uh, is not something that was really on anybody's radar. But that control coming down has been increasingly becoming a thing. Um, so Mike Moynihan said, "Okay, guys, we got to go. Like, we are not allowed to be here." Well, if we're not allowed to be there, it's not like we can go to the hotel next door, right? It's not like we could go to a hotel down the street. This is, something that all of the hotels were being told. So that leaves us in a situation where it's like, what do we do? And when it's happening spur of the moment, there's not like there's anything we could do about it. So I went over to Mike. I was like, Mike, let's just tell everyone to just meet up somewhere. Like, let's go somewhere else. Cause I don't think at that point we really understood why they were kicking us out. It was like we kind of were thinking, well, it was the hotel that wanted us to leave, but the hotel was following the instructions that they were being told. So I said, Mike, we got to tell everyone we got to go somewhere. We can't just cancel this. Like, there were people planning on this. And he's like, well, I mean, if you want to make an announcement. So I just got my teacher voice and I hollered out, hey guys, I'm gonna go down the street. Shoeless Joe's is a cool spot. They got a big outdoor patio. They got room indoors. I'm going down there. If you want to come down there and hang out, that's where I'll be. I hope that some of you join me. And that was sort of my invitation to anybody in the room of if you wanted to hang out, if you wanted to meet, if you wanted to mingle, if you wanted to chat, that's where I was going to be. And at that point, the food hadn't showed up, the pizzas hadn't showed up. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I wanted to extend an invitation to anybody who wanted to meet up to be able to meet up. But then when we went outside, there were a bunch of people in the lobby, and then there were a bunch of people outside. And it was like, well, I don't know how many people heard that. There's not a central place to share this information. You could put it on Instagram, but who's looking on Instagram? And so I felt really badly that there were people who were planning on meeting up, and I had said, hey, let's meet up. And then all of a sudden we weren't going to be able to meet up unless you went down to the place that I announced, and not everybody was there yet. So that was definitely something I felt bad about. Again, I don't think it's anyone's fault. It's not like, Mike Moynihan was expecting the National to have all the hotels and facilities shut us down. It's not the hotel's fault. They were doing what they were told to do. It was just one of those things where I think we're at the point now where with that event, it's a big enough event that we need to find a way to work with the National and partner with the National to use their facility for doing this, because they have room. There are lots of conference rooms at the National. There are lots of areas that they have as break rooms for signers and the VIP room, and there are spots to do it. I just think that it's probably time that it's a big enough event now that the hotels are like, wait, this is an event and we're not supposed to be hosting events. So we just need to partner with the National. Now, I don't really understand why the National is wanting to control the surrounding areas. I know that the National continues to say, we want to be like Disneyland, where everything that you need is hosted by us. But at the same time, I feel like, well, then the National needs to be providing all these things. Like, the thing about Disneyland is Disneyland has downtown Disney, and they have different parks that you can attend, and nobody wants to go to other things. It's like the park opens at the crack of dawn, it goes until midnight, and then you're exhausted, and then you want to go back to your hotel. And what I'm seeing is that if people are wanting to do trade nights, if people are wanting to do things after the show closes, if people are wanting to do those things, then the National isn't providing what people they're providing a lot of what people want. But it seems to me like the National is leaving things to be desired. And so if people want trade nights and if they want, I mean, it sounds like maybe the show's not long enough. Why not keep going? If people are leaving the show when it closes at 6 and then they want to go to a trade night, well, then why is the show still open? And I know the dealers are like, well, the dealers don't want to work a 16-hour day. I don't think. Maybe they do. I don't know. I know that the National probably doesn't want to pay for security for a few more hours. But if you want to be like the Disneyland event, then what you have to do is you have to provide what people want for the full time that people want it. And I think what the National potentially needs to do is they need to have, I mean, there was space. There was empty space at the National where things could have been held. So if we're not allowed to do a YouTube meetup, but you're not going to host a YouTube meetup, how's that work? That doesn't seem right. Like if people want trade nights, but then there's a line around the block for your trade night, like find room for a trade night. And the National gave me a media pass, and I didn't really think anything of it. I applied for a media pass, and last year I didn't get one, but then this year they gave me one. And I didn't really think anything of it. I was very appreciative that they provided the media pass, and I used it. And what the media pass gave me is basically um, it provided me access to the show the same hours as the VIP. Uh, but then I started thinking about it, and as I was going through the National and the experience, I started thinking about it because what I'm about to go through is I'm about to go through some of the pros and the cons of this year's show. And one of the reasons I don't have a lot of sponsors is because I want you guys to be like, Greg is authentic. Greg he tells us what he thinks. He doesn't say what his sponsor thinks. I've had opportunities for sponsors, and I've mostly not taken those opportunities. I could have been funds going towards my card hobby budget, but I've not taken a lot of them because I don't want you guys to ever think that my opinions are biased. So then I started thinking about it and I'm like, man, if I talk about some of the needs for improvement for the National, and then they go, well, why is this guy saying negative things about us? Then I might not get a media pass again. And it's not where I mean, the media pass is the equivalent of like a 5-day early entry pass, which is $150. So basically what they did is they provided me $150 value for the show. It's not worth, I mean, I hope they keep giving me a media pass because it's $150 and that's money I could spend on cards. And for me, that's a lot of money. But it's not worth for me the $150 media pass to not be able to give my honest opinion. So what I'm about to do is I'm about to give my honest opinion. And the National did a great job with some things this year. And there were some things that I think, could be improved. And I'm going to share those right now. And if that means that they think I'm being negative and they're not going to give me a media pass, that's okay. I understand. But it is too important to me to give you my unfiltered, unbiased, authentic opinion on things. And as a whole, I thought they did a great job. But there are areas that could get better. So let's take a look. And I'm going to just kind of go through. These are kind of my takeaways from the whole event. If you have not gone to a National, I would encourage you to go to it. It's quite the experience. I'm glad I went. it's second straight year I've gone. It's very, very different from other shows that I go to. It's very different from Strongsville. It's very different from my local shows and regional shows. But I really like going, and I'm planning on continuing to go as long as it's not on the East Coast. I can't get myself like, at first, when we heard that they were going to have the 2028 National in Atlanta, I'm like, "Well, I don't think I'm gonna go." It's just too far. Being in kind of the Midwest is kind of a good compromise. Like, Chicago is pretty central. I'll talk about that in a second, though. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at my thoughts. The first thing I wanna talk about is my budget. I had some people saying in, the comments after I showed my pickups, they were like, "Man, I thought your budget was only $100 a month. You just bought a $5,000 card." And I was like, "That's an interesting way to look at it." Like, instead of, "Hey, Greg, really excited for you, a guy on a small budget, just picked up a really big card." It was, "Aren't you the $100 budget guy? How are you buying a $5,000 card?" So let me explain a couple of things. First thing, I do still take $100 a month from my paycheck and put it into my card account. That is the only money that comes from my normal life paycheck, and it goes into uh, my card account. The rest of the money that I have comes from doing outside things to pay for cards. So, for example, and I mean, if people are saying, "How'd you do that?" There's not some secret thing that I did. It's not like I'm lying. I still only have $100. So, what I did in the spring is, at work, there were a few extra duty opportunities where I basically did some overtime work. And I did that overtime work. Um, and I said to my wife, "Hey, if I do these overtime duties, how would you feel if I took that money and put it in my card account?" She's like, "If you want to do stuff on your free time and then put that money toward cards, that's fine." So that was money over and above my regular pay. So that was where some of the money came from. Um, my channel receives some money from YouTube. It is not anything. I don't know what people think that channels make, but it's certainly not significant funds. But over the course of the year, you get a little bit here, you get a little bit there. That money goes into my card account. So all money that I receive from YouTube goes into my card account. Any overtime extra duties that I do goes into my card account. And a thing I've talked about a couple of times, and I haven't really gone into it. I guess I could someday if you want, but I've been trying to look for a side hustle for my cards. And so I've been estate sailing, and I've been going to estate sales, buying things and flipping them on eBay to make money for cards. So I'm waking up early on Saturday mornings. I'm going out. I'm buying things that I think I could sell. I then sell them on eBay. I package them up. I mail them out, and it's a ton of work. And I've been doing that. I've been doing that for about 3 or 4 months, and I've done well doing it. I mean, sometimes I'll buy something for $5 and sell it for 50. And now I have an extra $45 for my card account. So that is kind of how my budget got to where it was. Now, my budget for the National, all the money I had in my card account, I literally drained my card account, and I had $6,000 with me. And then I spent $7,950. No, $6,950. So I went over budget basically by $1,000, and I bought 2 cards. And so what I did is I borrowed money from my savings account, which I am now working on paying back to my savings account. So I spent $6,950 and I brought $6,000. So I went to my dad, uh I borrowed $800 from him, $900 from him, whatever it was, went to the ATM, paid the $20 ATM fee, pulled it out of my savings, paid him back so that I could get a couple of beautiful cards. Now, when I did my preview video posted, I think last Tuesday, so a little over a week ago. No, a week and a half ago, I guess it was. So a week and a half ago, I posted my preview video and I showed this first screen with my main 5 targets. The T206 Cy Young portrait, the red portrait Ty Cobb, the Cobb bat on shoulder, the Walter Johnson portrait, and the Nat Blageway portrait. I love the portrait cards from the T206 set. So these were my top targets. And with my budget of $6,000, I didn't really see a way I'd be able to get 2 of them unless maybe it was the Lajoie and the Cy Young, because those are the 2 most affordable. But I feel like I got a good deal on the Cy Young. I got a good deal on the Ty Cobb red portrait, and I win $1,000 into debt to myself. So the next couple of months will probably be a little bit lean on my pickups because I'm working on paying myself back. Thankfully, while I was at the show, I did sell a few things on eBay from my estate sailing side hustle. So I'm hoping to get out of debt to myself sooner rather than later. So there is my red portrait Ty Cobb. Again, I paid $5,000 for that card. I got it from my buddy Ash. I literally sat there and watched him trade for it. So let me tell this story. So what happened was I was at Ash's table hanging out with several friends. There were a lot of people there. Adam, Vintage Sanctuary, Joe Redneck Collector, John Wade Boggs fan. My dad was there. John Mangini was there. There were several people there. I'm sure I'm forgetting 1 or 2. There were several people at Ash's table. And I was talking to Joe, Redneck Collector, and I looked over and this guy is trying to trade for a 1951 Bowman Mickey Mantle. And he's trying to trade for it. And so he pulls out 2 red Cobbs. One was a red portrait Cobb and an SGC 3.5, and it was a Piedmont back. And it sounded like I heard them say that they valued that at $7,000. Now, I think it was $7,000 in trade value. So I'm guessing it means it's worth a little bit more than that. I didn't look that card up. And then there was this other one in a PSA holder, and I'm glancing over as I'm talking to Joe, and it has a 2 on it. And I'm like, oh man, I'm hoping my high end would be to get a 2. And so I'm literally like watching as they're going back and forth, and it's starting to look like the deal's kind of falling apart because the guy who walked up to the table, and I showed a picture of it, I think, or a short video. The guy had the 2 Cobbs, and then it was how much cash to get the mantle. And I think the mantle was in an SGC 3 or 3.5 or something. So the guy was having to add cash on top. So they kept referring to these 2 cards. And one they were saying was 5,000 and one they were saying was 7,000. And I'm like, a red Cobb that they're valuing at 5,000, it's kind of in my ballpark. So I'm like heavily distracted. And I said to Joe, who was talking about, I was like, Joe, I can't concentrate right now. I'm like pacing. I'm like, Joe, I can't concentrate right now, dude, because I really want a red Cobb. I've already made 1 loop through the show. I haven't seen the right Cobb, but that one in that PSA holder, it's a 2. It looks pretty nice. And I think they keep saying they're valuing it at 5,000. And he's laughing at me, and I'm like, I can't even think right now. So I walk over, and it was one of Ash's assistants that was doing the deal. So I walk around to the other side of the table, like, because he kind of had his table was kind of in like a horseshoe. So they're on one side of the horseshoe. I'm on the other side of the horseshoe, and I get Ash's attention. I go, Ash, if you guys end up closing this deal, I want first crack at those Cobbs. I want to look at them before anybody else does. And he kind of laughs, and he's like, okay, okay. So I go back over, and I'm hoping the deal goes through, and they're kind of like at an impasse, and it's looking like the deal might not happen. And a lot of people would say, why? Well, good. If the deal doesn't happen, then you could go to the guy directly and try to buy it from him directly. But I don't know. I kind of that kind of is a gray area for me. Like, dealers pay a lot of money at the shows to be able to buy and sell. And I'm watching this, and I'm like, Ash is my friend. If they can't get a deal, and then I swoop in and do a deal for the card that he couldn't get, it just kind of felt like I didn't want it to go that way. The way I wanted it to go is I wanted Ash to acquire the card, and then I wanted me to try to get it from Ash. That just would make me feel better, because I wanted Ash to get his deal done, but I also wanted my deal to get done. So then what happens was I'm going to tell a couple of stories today. So a lot of what you're going to hear are me talking stories about how these deals all played out. I hope that's okay. So finally they agree on the deal. And as soon as they shake on the deal and the guy hands over the extra cash to get the deal done, I say, Ash, let me see the card. And he starts shaking his head at me. He goes, let the guy at least walk away. So he takes 2 steps away from the table. Ash grabs it off the case. He reaches over, he hands it to me, and I look at it and I'm like, oh crap, it's an old mill back. And if you're not super familiar with T206s, and here it is on the screen, T206s have different advertising backs. And the way I like to think of it is I like to compare it to use the analogy of beer companies. Like Budweiser is common, Coors Light common, Sweet Cap and Piedmont backs are sort of like Budweiser and Coors Light. And then there are some lesser common beers and lesser common backs. So then you might think of like I don't know, like a polar bear back might be like Heineken. And then it goes all the way down to some microbrewery, like a drum back would be like a very, very rare back. It would be like a microbrewery. It'd be like Pliny the Elder, if you've ever heard of Pliny the Elder, out of the Santa Rosa area in California. Anyways, so I see it and I go, it's an old mill back. I thought they were valuing the card at $5,000, but they can't be valuing it at $5,000. It's an old mill back. But I'm looking at the card, and here's my take. My thing was the number one most important thing for me on a pre-war card is the registration. It is the focus of the card, because as they are doing each color, sometimes the colors get overlaid off just a hair, and it makes the card a little bit blurry. So a lot of the times you'll see this like little border here, and like one of the colors will be hanging over just a pinch, or will be short just a pinch. And what that does is it makes the card a little bit blurry. But you can see here, all of the colors are right on that edge line. And that's one of the ways you can tell that the registration is good. The best way to tell the registration is to look at the eyes of the player. And this is a blown up scan, so it looks a little bit fuzzy on the picture on your screen because I enlarged the image. But I'm looking at the eyes, and the eyes look like they're right in registration. So I'm standing next to John Mangini, who's working on a deal for a big card of his own. And I go, John, what do you think of this card? And he goes, I'd love to own this card. He goes, this is a beautiful card. And then he flips it over and he goes, oh, it's an old mill. So now it's suddenly an $8,000 card because of the old mill back. Because again, it's a much rarer back. And I go, yeah, he goes, but it's beautiful. I'm like, okay. Because it's always good when you're making a big purchase to get a second opinion. So then I say to Ash, how much are you wanting for it? And he said, well, I just gave $5,000 in trade value for it. So I'll sell it to you for $5,000. Now, a lot of people go, why? Well, first of all, Ash and I are friends. I have a great relationship with Ash where I say kind things. I show his inventory and I don't get anything for that. Like, I don't get any money for that. Like, at one point when I was like, hey, Ash, can I show your inventory? He's like, sure, well, let's do some sort of commission deal. I go, no. Let's just do a deal of we're friends. And so I'm going to show your cards because people want to see your cards, because some people can't make it to big card shows, but they want to have access to your cards because your inventory is the top inventory at the show. So how about we just do it because it's good for you? And then viewers of my channel will benefit from it. And he's like, we should do some sort of commission deal. I go, no. So then when Ash picks up a card for $5,000 in trade value, he cuts me a deal. He's like, well, I don't need to make money off of Greg because Greg and I have a good relationship. And I'm just pulling back the curtain and telling you the deal. Basically what's happening. Now, I don't say give me good deals. I don't say sell things at cost. I just look out for Ash and Ash looks out for me. That's just kind of same thing that happened last year when I bought my Ernie Banks rookie. So I walk back around to the other side of the table, and I walk back to the other side of the table. My dad is over there and he goes, what are you looking at? And I go, I'm looking at a Cobb I'm about to buy. And he goes, whoa, really? And right next to him was my buddy Adam, Vintage Sanctuary. Fantastic guy, great channel. Subscribe to Adam. And Adam and I have been friends for a couple years. And Adam is a former coin collector. And coin collectors are used to looking at very fine details, and they're really good at using loops. So I go, Adam, what do you think of this? And he goes, you want me to loop it? And I said, yeah. So he pulls out his loop, which he's been doing for years, collecting coins and now cards. And I said, will you check out the eyes for me and make sure that the eyes have the registration that they appear to? So he loops the eyes. And he comes up, he's looking down, he looks up at me, and he's got these big eyes, and he goes, it's perfect. The registration is perfect. I said, I think so too. And he says, do you want me to loop the rest of the card? And I said, please. So he loops the rest of the card. And, the card has a little wrinkle right here on his shoulder in this white area on his uniform. There's a little wrinkle right here. It doesn't go all the way through, which I had seen. And then up here in the top left-hand corner, there's like a little pinch mark right here. And he loops it and he goes, I mean, it's a really nice card. I was like, I think so too. So I said, Ash, 5,000. Ash says 5,000. And with that, I counted out about 85% of my entire budget for the show. Counted out 50 $100 bills and handed them over. And I couldn't be happier. I mean, my goal was to get my big card on night one to take the pressure off so I could just hang out. And that's what I did. And so I'm like, I'm going to have $1,000 left. But I got, because I mean, if I'm being honest with you guys, these were my top 5 targets, but the number one target was the red Cobb. That was the number one target. The number 2, it was my number one target last year at the National. I didn't find one that worked for me. It was my number one target at Strongsville. I didn't find one that worked for me. I didn't care about the back. I wanted a red Cobb that had deep red color and good registration. And this one has that. And even if you look at the one I was just looking at a second ago, here you can see right here, this is a great example of how the registration is off. So right here, see how along the edge of his head, there's this little tiny white gap. And then along the left edge, the red bleeds over a little bit across that line, that border line. You can see it better up here. That's why his eyes are slightly blurry, because that color overlay is off by just a tiny amount. It's very difficult to find one where it doesn't have any of that. And when you find it, it's in focus. And that was the number one thing. The number two thing for me was the red. Sometimes sometimes the coloring gets pixelated. And this is a very solid, deep red. That was the number two most important thing for me on the card. The number three most important thing for me on the card is the side-to-side centering. This has really good side-to-side centering. And then after that, I don't care about corners. I'm being honest, I don't care about corners on these cards. After that, I'd say I would want it to not have a crease, and then probably top to bottom centering. And the biggest issue on this card, if I was going to criticize it, would be the top to bottom centering. It has a slight angle cut at the top, and it's got the little wrinkle, and it's got a couple pinch marks. The three most important characteristics of this card are fantastic, and it's exactly what I was hoping for, and I'm absolutely thrilled. And it has an old mill back. I didn't have an old mill back. I have Piedmonts, I have Sweet Caps, I have 150s, I have 350s, I have Sovereign backs, I have Polar Bear backs. I didn't have an old mill back yet, and I just can't believe that I got a Ty Cobb with perfect registration, with perfect deep red color, perfect centering side to side, and then it also has an old mill back that just blows my mind. So then I keep walking around, just hanging out. The rest of the day, I'm just giddy. So that night, I had a hard time sleeping because I'm like, okay, I have $1,000 left. What's the plan now? Because there were other cards on my list. So I'm thinking like the third tier, something, and okay, maybe I could get a Bart Starr rookie. And Tim Payne had a nice Bart Starr rookie in a 4 or a 4.5 that was kind of on my mind. And I'm like, maybe I'll go with the Bart Starr. And then I'm like, well, maybe I go with another T206 I don't have. I don't have the Sam Crawford. I still need the action shot of Willie Keeler. So because at this point, basically, I've dropped $5,000. Almost everything else on my top tier, on my goal list, is now shot because I spent so much of my budget on one card. And then I start walking around, and because that night my dad goes, well, if you get short any money, I could always float you a few bucks. I'm like, okay. So then I'm thinking to myself, well, maybe I look at a card, look for something that's kind of in the $1,500 range. And then I just borrow $500 from dad, and then just pay him back out of savings or something. Because here's the deal. When you're at the National, when you live on the West Coast, we don't have Philly card shows. We don't have White Plains shows. We don't get to go to Dallas card shows or Chantilly. We don't have those big regional shows. There's the Burbank card show, but that's a 7-hour drive from where I live. I live in California. The Burbank card show, which they call now the West Coast card show, is in California, but it's a 7-hour drive. So I basically have 2 opportunities a year in order to buy a big card. And when I'm spending like this kind of money, like over $1,000, I really want to see the card in person. I don't want to buy a picture of it and then it show up and it have characteristics I couldn't see from the picture. So I really have Strongsville and I have the National. And with all due respect to Strongsville's fantastic, but it's not the National. The inventory at the National is like 7, 8 times the number of vintage dealers. At Strongsville, you have Bill Chappell, you have Stan Locke, you have Tim Payne, you have Ash, and then you have some other good dealers. Garrett, Ballpark Memories. There's a few other guys, but the National has way more inventory. And so if I'm going to buy a big card, I want to buy it at Strongsville or the National. The National is really my best opportunity every year to buy a big card. So I'm like, it might be worth going into debt to myself. And this is what's going through my head. I'm tossing and turning on Wednesday night because I'm going into debt to myself, but I don't have another really good buying opportunity until April for Strongsville. That's a long time from now. That's 8 months away. And I'm like, okay, so I go into debt to myself $1,000. I just need to sell some stuff on eBay. I could sell part of my collection, but if there's something for under 2K, I want to buy it because I just don't get these opportunities. So I'm going around the show and I'm thinking, okay, maybe a Lajoie because you can get a decent Lajoie for under 2K. Maybe a Sam Crawford, like some of the cards I had just mentioned. So I walk back over to my buddy Andy Geller of Sports World, who I featured in my day one video, the first dealer I featured. And he's got amazing inventory, but he's got a lot of different backs that are high-end backs, and a lot of the stuff I couldn't afford, even though it might be like a 3. It's a 3 and a sovereign back, and so it makes it kind of too much. And I just walked by with a couple of buddies, and I was just talking to him. And he goes, hey, I just picked some stuff up. And I go, what'd you get? And he goes, just a few minutes ago. He goes, I got that, I got that, I got that. And he points to about 4 or 5 cards, and they're all T206s. And he goes, and I got that. And he points to a beautifully centered, beautiful color, perfect registration Cy Young T206. And I said, whoa, how much do you want for that? And I go, can I see it? And again, the registration's the most important thing to me. And the registration on this Cy Young is perfect. And he says, he goes, well, here. And he flips it over on the back, and he has $2,000 on the back of the card. And I said, $2,000? He goes, that's actually a mistake. And I go, what do you mean it's a mistake? And he goes, it's a mistake because I actually, I was hoping to get 2,000 out of it. And so I usually build in some buffer. He's like, so the price tag was supposed to be like 2,500, but 2,000's my bottom. Now I see this card with this deep green, with this registration, with this centering. Again, corners are way down the list for me. I just don't care about corners for a card that's 115 years old. And there's no crazy creases. This checks all the boxes. And I'm like, $2,000. And I made a little sale. So I think I had $1,100 in my pocket, or I might have had $1,200 in my pocket. Something, I don't remember exactly. I sold, somehow I have $1,200 in my pocket. And I know I'm going to buy the card. So I go, I really like the card. I go, I'm probably going to come back. Well, I'm definitely going to come back, but I tell him I'm probably going to come back. So I call my dad. I said, Dad, where are you? He said, I'm at Stan Locke's table, which is about a 2-minute walk from where I am. I go, can I borrow some money? He goes, yeah, how much you need? I go, I need $800. He says, okay, come on over. So I walk over. As I'm walking over, I call Tony, Southern Collector. I go, Tony, where you at? I need a second set of eyes. And he says, I'm meeting I'm meeting Tim over at the PSA booth. I said, can I borrow you for a second? I need you to check a card for me. He says, sure. So I walk to my dad. He goes, how much do you need? I go, 800. So he hands over $800. I then walk to the PSA booth, which is a 1-minute walk away. And Tim's over there and Tony's over there. Right then, Mike Petty walks up. And I said, hey, I want your guys' opinion. Will you guys check out this card with me? He says, yes. So we start walking. We start to head over back to Andy Geller's table, he's at 1 minute away. All of this, the show is huge. But where my dad was, where Tony was, where we met up was, and where Andy was, are all in this very small little spot, all within a 2-minute walk, even with the traffic. So we start walking back over, and my buddy Mike, Junk Wax Hero, walks up. And he goes, what are you guys doing? I go, I'm headed over to go buy this Cy Young card. He goes, really? I go, yeah. He goes, what's the card? I go, it's a PSA 1.5. And he goes, how much does he want? I go, 2,000. He goes, that's crazy because there's a Cy Young card in an SGC2 over there that I'm thinking about buying. That's $2,000. I go, really? Where is it? Maybe I should check it out before I go buy this one. He goes, it's right over here. I go, well, I'm going to walk over and show these guys, get a second opinion on the card that I'm going to buy. And I said, are you going to buy this Cy Young? And he goes, I don't think so. And I go, well, you get that one. I'm going to get this one if these guys, unless I'm missing something. So Mike says, okay, well, it's right over here. So we start walking. He goes, yeah, actually, he goes, it's this dealer. So we get to Andy's table. He goes, it's this dealer that has the SGC2. And I said, he's got a 1.5 I'm about to buy. And he goes, did you see the 2? I go, he had some 2s, but they weren't $2,000. So he goes, yeah, it was that card. So he asked Andy to see an SGC2. Well, it was an SGC2 with a sovereign back. And I think Andy was asking like 3,000 on it. He goes, oh, I guess maybe 2,800. He goes, I guess it wasn't that card. And he goes, oh, I think it was this one. And he points to the card that I'm planning on about to buy. And he pulls it out and he hands it to us and we flip it over and it's got the 2,000 tag. He goes, yeah, this is the card that I was thinking about. And I go, oh no. I go, we're both interested in the same card. And he goes, we have similar taste. And I'm like, I know we do. There've been many times that we have different cards that he and I have a lot of similar tastes in what we like and what we collect. And I kind of pull him aside and I said, Mike, seriously, I'll step aside on this. I was like, I already bought my Cobb. I'm happy. If you want this card, I will happily step aside. And at this time, Tony and Petty and everyone are looking at it, checking it out, making sure I'm not missing anything. And he says, I said, Mike, if you want this card, I'll step aside. You haven't bought anything yet. I'm happy. And he said, no. He goes, Greg, I want you to buy this card. I go, but you were looking at it too. You were thinking about it too. And he goes, Greg, I'm serious. He's all, it's okay. I was just thinking about it. It's not like I was absolutely going to buy it or I would have bought it. You should buy it. I go, are you sure? Because I'm happy to not. And he goes, Greg, I think you should buy the card. So I say, Tony, Petty, what do you think? And they said, that's freaking beautiful. Registration's perfect. The green is perfect. The centering is fantastic. It's just got very honest corners. And it's got a little scratch right from his ear to the edge here that you can kind of see, which whatever. Not a wrinkle on the card, just that little scratch. And I said, all right. So I said, okay, Andy, here's the deal. I had no plans, by the way. I had no plans on this video being as long as this is going, but I'm telling you guys the whole story. If this isn't interesting, I hope you fast forwarded it, but it's fun to retell and recount. So Petty, so Petty and Tony give me the blessing. Mike's obviously said he likes it. I said, Andy, here's the deal. You want 2,000 for the card. I go, but here's my situation. And I know at this point I'm buying the card. I'm paying, I have 2,000 in my pocket. I'm gonna happily pay the 2,000 for it. And I said, I would love to be able to look back on this national and be like, I bought this card for less than 2,000. So I would love to buy it, but I would love to buy it for less than 2,000. I go, I bought a card from you last year. I go, we know each other and we're pals. I go, so what do you think? And he goes, I think 1950. And I said, I think that sounds perfect. We shook hands. I pulled out my money and handed him over the 2,000 I had in my pocket. He handed me $50 back, and I bought the number 2 card on my target list. Both cards I bought were from dealers I'm friendly with moments after the card was acquired by them at their table. Sometimes for a high quality card, a high eye appeal card, they go fast at the National. They don't hang around. So in order to get it, you have to do it quickly after it shows up. And that's why you can't think on cards. You can't wait on cards because they would be gone. And I'm thrilled with my additions. As far as the pricing, there was a lot of talk about, oh, the prices were high. Some dealers are high. Some dealers weren't high. High eye appeal stuff was mostly expensive. High end cards was mostly expensive. But the other thing you got to remember is the show's 5 days long. And I did all my buying on Wednesday and Thursday. And there's no reason to give a card away when you're going to have 100,000 people coming through the show. And there's 5 days of it and it's day one. Why give it away? So there were some dealers who had prices that seemed a little high. But to be honest with you, there were a lot of dealers who had fair prices. So to me, it's a dealer to dealer thing. And that's just my take on that one. All right, the pros of the show. What were the positives that of the National this year? First, the Wi-Fi was great. Last year, the Wi-Fi was crashed pretty much the whole time. The Wi-Fi went down at one point for about 5 or 10 minutes that I noticed. Other than that, the Wi-Fi was fantastic. So great job by the National on the Wi-Fi. The AC was fantastic. I know the last time it was hosted in Chicago, the AC was not doing well. It wasn't hot while we were there. It was it was in the mid to low 80s outside. I'm sure that was part of it, but the AC was great. The Wi-Fi was great. So the biggest 2 complaints about the Chicago National 2 years ago was the Wi-Fi and the AC. Both of those were fantastic. So good job from the National in addressing that. The location is great. Listen, Chicago is pretty centrally located. It's easy for the East Coast. It's easy for the Midwest. It's not too far for the West Coast. It's a fair place to do it. It's just central. It was a 3-hour and 45-minute flight for me. And that's not bad. But when people start talking about Atlantic City again or Atlanta, I mean, come on. Like West Coast people are already going far enough. And I love that the hotels are right next to the actual convention center. Being able to walk back and forth, that's another thing. The bathroom situation, I think, was much better than in Cleveland. And part of that is because you could go back and take a break at your hotel. And that makes a big difference. Being able to take a break at your hotel, take a little nap, take a shower, use the restroom makes the restroom situation in the facility better too. And the inventory. I mean, there was lots of great stuff there. Is everything at the National? No, not everything. Could you have shown up and said, I want to find this card and it not been in the building? Possibly. But you know what? It's pretty darn good. And most of the stuff that I was looking for, there were options. All right. The cons. Now, again, it wasn't perfect. There were some issues. So what were they? First thing, the layout in the building is really confusing. It's kind of like a horseshoe. The room is like a horseshoe around the main lobby. And it's sort of like there's like different rooms within the convention center. And it took me a full day to kind of get the lay of the land and know where everybody was and what everything was. And if you're just coming into town for a day or two, it can be confusing and you can definitely get turned around. I don't see a way around that because the shape of the facility just it is what it is. So if you want to do it in Chicago and you want to do it right across the street from a whole bunch of hotels, this is what happens. The signage. I felt a little bit confused checking in. There was one place to check in for VIP passes, a different day for 5-day passes, a different place for 1-day passes. Finding the VIP area was down some stairs and then up an escalator and then in a different room. There were some signs, but they weren't huge. It seems like that could have been a little bit easier to navigate, to find where to go. At one point, my dad said I would have gone to the VIP lounge, but I couldn't find it. I didn't know where it was. It was a little bit more difficult to figure out where to go because of a lack of signage. That would be an area, I think, for improvement. The upstairs was a disaster. The upstairs could have fit a football field, but they had all of the tables in an end zone. It the the aisles were so tight you couldn't walk around. There were a couple of dealers up there I wanted to really check out their cases, and I tried to, but I just couldn't. And then I didn't trust if I was going to get pickpocketed or anything. Which, let me say this: the security was fantastic. There was a lot of security. There were a lot of dogs, sniffing dogs around. There was a lot of, guys with the whole earpiece in, radioing. It felt very safe to me in the facility. Very safe to me in the facility. But the upstairs was so tight, I felt like I had to have my hand on my wallet the whole time. I feel like they could have rented more of the space upstairs to be able to add tables and space it out a little bit. The upstairs was mostly modern, but still. The control. The fact that we couldn't have a YouTube get together, not because the hotel didn't want us there, but that the hotel was afraid they'd get in trouble if we had a get together. I don't think that the National should be able to prevent us from doing get together. Again, I understand why. I already talked about that. But if they're not going to allow there to be a get together, then they need to be able to provide a space for the get together. If they're going to say you can't have a YouTube hangout, but we're not going to have a YouTube hangout, that doesn't seem cool. It's just a bunch of friends that want to get together and talk. We're not getting together to set up a card show. We're taking pictures, we're hanging out, we're shaking hands, we're eating pizza. And I think it's maybe time that the National either hosts this or gives the okay for one of the hotels to host it. It's not a card show. It's a hangout. And we weren't able to do it because the National isn't allowing the hotels to 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 host these events. That was a bummer for me. As a whole, I thought that the National was great. I got to meet a lot of people. I got to see a lot of friends. I got to stay across the street from the convention center. There are two major airports that you can fly in and out of. It's convenient to O'Hare. It was great. And I got the number 1 and number 2 cards on my list. And I went into debt to myself to do it, but I was happy to do it because after reevaluating on the fly, I was like, you know, I don't get these opportunities to have this type of inventory in front of me. And I don't really like buying expensive cards through the mail. So I need to just, if I see the right item, I need to get it. Um, Thank you to everybody who was gracious and said hello and all the kind words. It was fantastic meeting all of you. I'll be back next year. I know we can't book hotels because now all the hotels you have to go through the National to book them. So quite frankly, I'm a little worried about being able to get a hotel that I want. I don't I don't I mean, I don't know about that part, but um I'll be back next year. My dad had a blast. He got some amazing cards. Um I just like hanging out with my friends and I was able to do that. Um and it was great. So those are my takeaways, those are my thoughts, those are my stories. Again, I thought this was going to be like a 20-25 minute episode. The fact that I went over an hour goes to show how easy it is for me to talk about this stuff and talk about cards and I enjoy it. So if you stuck around to the end, I appreciate it. Looking forward to 2026 heading back to Chicago.